With the general election just a few weeks away, politicians have been pouring campaign resources into televised political ads. But how effective are campaign contributions in helping a candidate advance to the top of his or her race? UHERO's Sumner LaCroix joins us now. That's the University of Hawaii's Economic Research Organization. And Sumner is an economics professor there. Good morning, Sumner, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So you just heard a few minutes earlier about all of the money candidates have been spending and a lot of outside interests being spent here in the islands for these TV ads.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of factors that are driving up campaign spending this year. The big one, though, is the U.S. Supreme Court last year ruled in a landmark decision that corporations and unions could give unlimited amounts of money, not directly to political campaigns, but to other groups who could then run ads on behalf of candidates. Not only could they give money, this applies to individuals also, but they could give it anonymously. So you can get outside groups running ads that we're really not sure who's funding the ads, and they're unlimited in the amount of ads they can actually run. So the result nationwide has been a huge increase in election spending. The amount of ads run on Senate and House races has increased from 113 million in 2006 to over 200 million already at this stage of the election campaign. That's an absolutely huge increase that we haven't seen before. We're also seeing candidates spending a lot more of their own money. So we have, for instance, in New York, you have Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who spent about $150 million of his own money. I mean, that's an amazing sum of money to spend on your own campaign.
Well, he's a rich guy. He has money on his own.
There was a backlash at the end of the campaign, where I think the money really hurt him. People started to look at him as buying his own campaign. Meg Whitman in California, the Republican candidate for governor, spent $113 million. Now, closer to home, there's been considerable spending here, but not quite at those levels that we're talking about here. We have Mufi Hanneman, who spent $3.4 million in the Democratic primary. Through the primary, Neil Abercrombie spent $2.9 million. And we also had Duke Iota, who didn't have a primary opponent, but spent approximately $2.5 million just to keep his name before the voters.
Right.
The amount of money in Hawaii spent on the governor's race through the primary outstrips the amount of money spent on the entire race all the way through Election Day in 2006.
So does the campaign spending help necessarily the candidate win more votes? And there's actually a couple of examples that I can think of where that doesn't necessarily mean they'll win the election.
It never means that you're going to win the election. It usually means if the other candidate doesn't respond and you spend more, it usually means more votes. But it doesn't mean that you're going to win. If it meant that you were going to win, then we'd have Mufi Hanneman now as the Democratic candidate for governor, we'd have Norman Sakamoto for lieutenant governor, and we'd have Kirk Caldwell would be mayor of Honolulu. They all raised more money than their opponents, and they all didn't win.
You know, during my college days, we took political science, and they showed that negative advertising works. But in terms of dollars and cents, do you think it works?
The studies tell us basically that negative advertising works as long as your opponent doesn't respond quickly. If your opponent responds quickly, then usually all that we're seeing is an arms race, where ad spending starts to go up and up and up. The public starts to think that politicians are basically lowlifes, and advertising agencies run all the way to the bank.
Oh, boy. And the TV stations, we must say, really like all the spending as well. Sumner LaCroix, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next Friday. And don't forget, if you'd like to see this interview again, as well as others from our morning news, you can log on to kitv.com/the